Welcome to She Can and She Will. My name is Marianne Brown, also known as the Country Mompreneur. I'm joined by my co-host, Keysa McAllister. We are moms, work-from-home experts, and queens at helping women take control of their lives. On this show, you will learn from us as well as other women who kick butt in their lives and want to help you do the same. So sit back and get ready for some fun. We are back with She Can and She Will, and we are being joined today by Keysa Amaro, and you are a certified integrative nutrition coach.
Yes,
Welcome.
I am.
Welcome. Welcome. We are so excited to have you here. The first thing we want to find out from you is if you can tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, of course. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I'm so excited to share what I can with your audience. And really growing up in I grew up in a dance environment, and I was always very conscious of my weight and began at a very young age to restrict my calories and eat a low fat diet in order to lose weight. That was basically my intention, was just like lose weight. And then after years of this restricting and then eventually overeating, because that's what happens when we restrict, I developed a poor self-worth and a really vicious yo-yo dieting cycle until I did my first paleo challenge. And this was really like, not that I am a advocate of paleo, but it was this experience that really shifted my view of food. And after my first challenge, I realized just how food affected my body. And I found myself with really like more energy, less digestive issues, reduced cravings, less overeating. And after changing my diet, I wanted to share this with other people, and especially people who were struggling with the same dieting issues that I was. And this was when I started coaching clients. And really, it was about like eating for health and energy instead of eating for weight loss. So like changing our perspective on food. But I still felt that there was something missing, right? I was still emotionally tied to my food and found myself like needing certain foods and craving, I like quote unquote healthy foods. I think of like the amount of like apples and almond butter I overate, right? Just like, I just can't get enough of it, right? Like we think that that's like a healthy food, right? And I really began to research and learn about emotional eating and overeating. Like I had no clue what that was. And through my research and working with a coach, I learned tools and strategies that were very specific to emotional eating, managing cravings, and overeating. And by applying these tools and principles around my relationship with food, I was able to shift my mindset and manage my emotions around food. And now I incorporate these tools and principles into my coaching practice. And that's what I share with my clients.
Oh, I love that you called it yo-yo dieting. It does, like, I fall in that spectrum of like extreme one way or extreme the other. And it can really, affect every area of your life if you just can't stop thinking about either not eating food or eating food. So can you explain to us what is emotional eating?
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, I had no clue that I was an emotional eater. I just thought there was something wrong with me. So emotional eating is when we have an unwanted or uncomfortable emotion. Let's say frustration, stress, loneliness, or boredom. And we use food to cover up that uncomfortable feeling of the emotion. We usually go for like the sugary, salty, fatty, processed foods because these foods give us a huge hit of dopamine, which is a feel-good neurotransmitter in our brain. So that's what gives us that like sensation of pleasure. So we get a lot of pleasure from these sugary, salty, fatty foods.
So when they say like comfort food, this is like
yes. Yeah. Yes, definitely. And it can also give us like that memory of a good time, right? Or like maybe when we were younger, we ate mac and cheese or something. And so when we're going through a rough time, we're craving mac and cheese because it reminds us of childhood and maybe like comfort of childhood. So yeah, we reach for these foods when we feel an uncomfortable emotion, coming on, and it's basically we want to numb ourselves from this uncomfortable emotion or cover it up and feel good, essentially.
I have that with, Ben and Jerry's chocolate chip cookie dough ice cream. Whenever I have that, I have memories of hanging out with my friends in college and eating pintfuls after like classes and stuff. That's sad. So why is it, do you think, why do we eat emotionally? Like what causes that?
Yeah. So like I mentioned, it's like we have that uncomfortable emotion and then we use food to cover that up, to cover up that unwanted emotion. Mm-hmm. And we get that dopamine hit or that feel good feeling in our body, that sense of pleasure. But I do want to go a little deeper than that as far as why do we emotionally eat? And if you are an emotional eater or if you use any other substance or distraction really to ignore your emotions, you just haven't learned how to process your emotions in a way that is healthy and useful. And basically in our culture, we tend to pass over emotions, right? As like in our younger years and even adulthood, right? We're told to like suck it up. Don't cry. Don't be a baby. Oh, it's not that bad, right? We have this messaging that we're fed about like not really feeling emotions. Like we're not taught how to recognize and name and process our emotions in a healthy way. We're taught to cover them up, stuff them down, or ignore them, right? And then this leads us to things like eating food, drinking alcohol, like scrolling social media, maybe drugs, shopping, right? We get dopamine hits from shopping or video games. And these help us cope with the pain of these negative emotions.
So how do you actually manage emotional eating if you are having all those emotions, and what do you do instead?
Yeah, definitely. And it can seem really overwhelming, right? Like a lot of times we feel like these emotions are just controlling, or like our cravings are just overeating is just controlling us. And first and foremost, there can be a lot of shame and guilt around emotional eating. Right? We may think that there is something wrong with us. Like I thought there was something wrong with me because I just couldn't control myself around food. And I felt really shameful and guilty about that. And before I started, my journey to healing my relationship with food, I didn't realize that I was an emotional eater. Right? And so first and foremost, I want you to come from a place of compassion and curiosity with yourself when working through really understanding and managing your emotional eating. And this was a game changer for me. And it's a game changer for many of my clients. Like we got to drop the guilt. We got to let go of it. We got to let go of the shame around emotional eating, and really get curious and find out what is really going on. What's really going on for me? Because it's not about the food, right? The food is just that Band-Aid that we're putting on. It was just the Band-Aid we're using. You don't need more willpower. You don't need more self-control, right? We need to have compassion for yourself and get curious about what's really going on, right? So you can ask yourself, why did I reach for copious amounts of ice cream at night? And with this, like, not like, oh my gosh, why did you do that? But like, just curious, like, I wonder why I do that. Like, why do I eat so much ice cream at night? Right?
That would be very helpful, I'm sure, for a lot of people to kind of delve into that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like, why do I feel out of control around food? Why do I want this food?
Oh man, if I could just give up like the guilt and shame around like overeating or like emotional eating.
Well, and I think also by having those kind of emotions in front of your kids, it's just putting them onto them to have those feelings too, which is also not good.
Oh, for sure. And that was one of my big whys as far as like my daughter's 6 years old now, but when I had her, I'm just like, I cannot pass this on to my daughter. So that was a big why for me, and like really getting to that root cause. But really, like, you know, through curiosity, I was able to find the root cause of my emotional eating. I was able to recognize that I was eating because I was lonely or unsatisfied or agitated or frustrated. And once I realized that I was eating to cover up an unwanted emotion, I had to work on what I call emotional intelligence. And what I mean by that is just really understanding what an emotion is, you know, how it affects your body, and why some emotions are uncomfortable and some emotions feel good. And I really had to educate myself on like what are different emotions, because I like to think of that song, If You're Happy and You Know It. It's like, those are the emotions we know. It's like, if you're happy and you know, if you're sad, if you're mad, you know, like there's just like a handful of emotions that we kind of turn to or identify with. So that was really kind of like the extent of my emotional intelligence. And I didn't even know what to do with them, right? You know, we also learned that negative emotions are like bad, quote unquote bad, and positive emotions are good, right? We're told to cheer up, don't be a downer, just put a smile on your face, turn that frown upside down, right? These are all figures of speech that tell us that we should be happy and that negative emotions are bad. So
that's a really interesting concept. Yeah. So do you recommend that people kind of like embrace, like you're not feeling good right now, like just embrace that? Or how do you?
Yes.
Yeah. Ooh.
Yes. And like being okay with being frustrated or sad or mad, or like these emotions that we have a negative concept with, like just knowing that this is part of the human experience, right? There's part of the human experience is to have positive and negative, and without one, we can't have the other. And so when we feel negative emotions, we also feel positive emotions.
And I feel also that sometimes you can overeat with positive emotions as well. Like if you're at a party or something and you just eat too much, you're having a great time and you don't.
Yeah, definitely. We can eat to celebrate, right? The celebration mindset. It's just like, or kind of like feeling deserving. There's many, many reasons why we can overeat, for sure.
So how do you get through your day? Between work, your family, and all the in-betweens, who has the time to connect with others who face your similar struggles? Join us at our monthly Women Helping Women virtual networking sessions to make connections with other women who face your same struggles. Make new contacts, whether you are looking for business connections, accountability partners, or to build relationships. If you've never joined a virtual networking session, it's very laid back and we try to make it fun for all who attend. We ask you share your name, what you do for a living, and what you're looking to get out of the session. We encourage people with like interests to share their contact info to connect once the session is over. This is a great opportunity to build bonds with new people who you never would have met in your day-to-day life. So whether you're looking to make professional connections or looking to find some new friends, sign up for our next session. Find more information at thecountrymompreneur.com. Now, what would you say are some of the negatives with emotional eating? Like, what's wrong with it?
So yes, what's wrong with emotional eating? I love this question because we think that there is something wrong with emotional eating. Right. And I just want, if you're struggling with emotional eating, I just want you to know that there is nothing wrong with emotional eating. It's just a coping mechanism that you use to help protect you from feeling uncomfortable, or some type of fear or danger. Your primitive brain is just trying to keep itself safe. That's all, right? We're just trying to keep ourselves comfortable and safe. Now, if you notice that you are getting negative long-term results from emotional eating, right? So maybe you do it like once a month, like no big deal, whatever, right? But if it's something that's happening multiple times a week or every day, and, you're having digestive issues because you're overeating, maybe you have weight gain, you have poor sleep, you have low energy, right? These are long-term effects that could be negative, right? That you don't necessarily want. And so if you do have these negative long-term results from emotional eating, then let's do something about it, right? But know that there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with emotional eating. You're not doing something bad. You're just trying to protect yourself, right? So, when you do reach out and start working on your relationship with food and your emotional eating, it's really important to remember that it's kind of like letting go of that guilt and shame, letting go of this idea that I'm doing something wrong, that I'm doing something bad. It's just a coping mechanism. That's all it is. It's like people who scroll social media, right? Mm-hmm. And they can't get off of it. They just are getting that dopamine hit from like likes or cute memes or funny videos, right? Like,
it's never ending,
right? It's like, I'm not feeling like, or I'm feeling like down or something. I'm like, let me go on this account because I know they'll have a funny video.
Absolutely.
So it's, there's nothing wrong with you. So really like seeking out a community, a coach, a therapist, these are all resources that can help support you. And I highly recommend, like, if you are recognizing that you're an emotional eater and that it is something that is affecting you and that you would like to change and shift and like figure out a way out, then I highly recommend seeking out a coach to help guide you through this process. And a coach is someone who is going to support you along your journey and someone who is going to guide you, and you can ask questions. Therapists are also very helpful if you have experienced any trauma. Sometimes we have trauma in our life and therefore we eat because of this trauma. And therapists are specially trained to help with trauma. So I do highly recommend that for sure.
So if someone listening right now wanted to work with you, what are the ways in which you work with people, and what's your preferred method of contact?
Yeah, of course. So I work with clients one-on-one right now. You can follow me on Instagram at Keysa.Amaro. That's KEYSA.AMARO. My website is KeysaAmaro.com, spelled the same way. And you can find out more about me. I have some free guides on there if you want to kind of like get to know me a little bit more. I do have my calendar to book a discovery call on there as well. And then I do have my Lose Your Cravings podcast where I talk about, just alternative ways that are not tied to food necessarily, on how to really shift out of this craving mindset and feeling control around food.
Perfect. And we'll include this in the show notes so people can just
for sure.
Awesome.
Yes, people can check it out. So now at the end of every podcast, we ask everyone, how do you stay organized?
Oh my gosh, this question kind of made me laugh a little bit. Because I'm like, oh, do you think I'm organized? No, my technique for staying organized at this time is to plan ahead. I am a huge fan of planning ahead, whether that be with my nutrition, my meals, because that also helps with emotional eating as far as having food planned out. And, when we plan ahead, we plan with our prefrontal cortex, which is this part of our brain that is like, it knows about our future. It knows about our goals. It knows about consequences, right? So when we plan ahead, we plan for like our goals and meeting our goals. So whether that's, incorporating more vegetables, or maybe, making sure I get 3 meals a day so I'm not overeating at night. Or if it's in your business, like I need to plan out what I need to do for the week so that I meet my goals for my business. Or it could be with your family, like if you have, or a trip, right? A vacation, like we need to plan ahead in order to like budget and plan and organize. So I'm a huge fan of planning ahead. I put things on my phone. I Google Calendar is, I don't want to say my life, but like everything's on there, and I plan in like the little things too. Like if I'm going to go for a walk, if I'm going to, like when I'm going to eat, like I have a half hour where I'm like, this is where I eat, because if I don't, it can get like filled up. Right. So planning ahead, putting it in my calendar, and then following my calendar, which is probably the hardest part, is like, okay, it's on my calendar. Now I need to actually follow it. But what helps me follow it is that I know if I follow it, I will have more free time in the end, right? I'm not going to be procrastinating. Right? And like, oh shoot, I need to work on this, or I need to get this done, or, you know, and so it kind of gives me more freedom when I follow my calendar. So I remember that at the time when I like have something on my calendar I don't want to do, and be like, okay, just do it. And then you have like this free time this evening, you're not procrastinating and stressing out about it. So.
Oh yeah, that's a great way to do it. Yeah. Put your time into the planning and then just follow the plan. But that's really awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on our podcast today, Keysa. And, this is great information. I think you're going to help a lot of women.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so grateful to be able to share with women who, and men too, but women who struggle with emotional eating. Because I think it is like, once we address it and shift out of it, it'll change your life in more ways than you could ever imagine.
Thank you for listening. For more information, join us at thepmagency.com.